talk about. Come to the show. We about to chop it up. Come to the show. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it. Chop it. Chop it. Chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it. Chop it. Chop it up. Chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about.
You are now tuned in to the Chop Shop with your host, Pastor Marvin McKenstry Jr. Let's chop it up.
Good evening, Chop Shop audience. Let's chop it up. Let's chop it up. Let's chop it up. Blessed and excited as always to be able to bring you another episode of the Chop Shop. I'm your host, Pastor Marvin McKenstry Jr. And look, man, I'm excited about tonight's show because we got one of my favorite guys. He's going to bring the fire. I told him that I wanted to have a real, keep it real conversation about the city of Baltimore, about what's working, what's not, and what direction we see it going. The one and only Pastor Corey Barnes. But before we get to that, I got to bring on my right hand and my left hand, my main man on the ones and twos, Techniques 1200s, because anything else is uncivilized. Mr. Shaka Pitts. What's going on, good man?
What's up? What's up, good brother? How you doing today?
I'm just saying, I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it out there in the public, right? The efficiency, proficiency, and peace that I see you functioning with in your new role, I know God got you where you're supposed to be, brother.
Hey, Marv.
You ever seen somebody that got with that song called "The Peace Like a River"?
Hey, Marv. I made a phone call today with my foot up on the legs, looking out the window.
That's how you do it. You working in government.
Chilling,
man, look,
chilling, man.
I'm excited. I'm so excited. There's so many wonderful things that are going on, and we still got some trouble around. But tonight, we are going to be talking, man, to one of the baddest brothers in the game. This conversation tonight, I don't even want to get into the news because we're going to talk about all that once we get him on the screen. So getting to these church announcements, the Stop a Beef Hotline, y'all. We've been out here now. The Men of the We Are Us movement been out here for 3 years now. And listen, we are growing, we're moving, expanding, and the growth ain't always about numbers. I think we got 13 platoons of 10 men in each platoon right now that's functioning throughout the city. But it's about stopping the beef, and it's about making sure that people live and not die in the city of Baltimore. You call 443-431-3705 or 443-522-7848. You have two men that are going to respond, and a group, a conglomerate, an army, whatever we need to do in response to what the situation is. So we need you making sure that if you know anybody that's in a beef type situation, please give us a call so that we can make sure we can do everything. We pay bills, we do what's necessary to make sure that people live and not die. Walking hand in hand with it through the city of Baltimore is the Baltimore Peace Agreement, a 10-point plan that was put together by brothers who are 10 toes down in the streets. And literally the plan simply says this: even if I gotta eat in the street, I ain't got to die in the street, and I ain't got to kill in the street. And we've been taking a census of some neighborhoods that we've been through, and some brothers that have made this commitment, y'all. They are living up to their word. If the Baltimore Peace Agreement has not come to your neighborhood, I need you to give us a call to make sure that we can get it to you, because we want to make sure that people in Baltimore know it's okay to live. Employ Baltimore show every Thursday at 1 p.m. I'm on there talking to people about the different things that are taking place in Baltimore City around changing the social economic dynamic of folks. It's no better way to save a life than to give somebody a career opportunity. If you're 18 to 24, Baltimore. If you are 18 and over, you can come to any of our career centers. We got to update the flyer, Shaka. We got a new logo, my brother. So we got to update the flyer, but make sure you tuning in and you getting the opportunity. Victory House Worship Center, where yours truly has the privilege to be the chief servant, the senior pastor. Sundays at 10 a.m. Come on in and fellowship with us. Get a good word and a good worship experience. Come as you are. We that church. We don't tell you what to do, dictate how you should look. We just want you to come in and receive the love of Christ, y'all. Come on in Sundays at 10 a.m., 1063 West Fayette Street. I need lifeguards. Y'all see that little code right there? Scan it. Send your son, your daughter, anybody. I need lifeguards. Listen, the demand for lifeguards is great. $16 per hour to start. A lifeguard certification that's going to go with them wherever they go. CPR first aid certification and a lot of summer fun, y'all. Y'all go to my Instagram, go to my Facebook page, tell people to scan that little barcode right there and register, because on Monday, we're going to be literally doing live on the spot interviews, and I need way more people than I got. I think about 6 people now, and I need to fill 30 positions, y'all, at $16 an hour. Please tell everybody you know the Jobs guide needs lifeguards. All right. Community engagement walk. There you see yours truly and some of the legends of Baltimore. That's some legends in that pit. Uncle T, Stokey, brothers that's serious about this boots on the ground work for June the 11th, Saturday at 12 noon, Liberty Heights and Gwen Oak. We're going to be out there supporting and representing the community, doing what we do up there in the great Howard Park community to bring resources, information, and opportunities to the people of the city of Baltimore. I need everybody to share this flyer when you see it posted. All right, the VHWC Men's Month continues. It's going to be Men's Day, and my bro, Bishop Damian Barry, this man of God said he's shutting down the whole church, and he bringing his whole church down to my church. So it's going to be a gathering for the ages. So tell some men, man, you know, to come through. Bring your father, bring your brother. We're going to celebrate manhood on that day. It ain't going to be none of the negative bashing. Man, it's going to be about edifying and celebrating the brothers. All right. Another community engagement walk. On these Monday walks, y'all, we are out at night in the community. The Saturday work walks are great work, but these are the realest of the real, and they're reserved for men only. On the Saturday walk, sisters, y'all come and join us. But these Monday nights, because we're out in the community at night, we reserve these for men. We're going to be starting at St. Martin's Church of Christ, 2118 West Madison Avenue, where the pastor is the great Dr. Bishop Kevin Daniels. Y'all, we're going to be out in the Penn North, Druid Heights community, walking and engaging those people over there, making sure every time we go, somebody leaves the streets right then and there and goes to treatment. Somebody gets an interview and an opportunity that day or the next day. Somebody before that weekend is out is working. Y'all come on out, men. Send the men. Tell the men, come on, get on up. Go on out there with the brothers. They need all the strength that they can. We need to come like an army, not an army of war, but an army of love. We need your support. Men, Monday, be out there with us. We got anything else, Shot? All right, this guy named Pastor Marvin McKenstry Jr. is having a little bit of celebration on. My church insists on it. I like doing the work. I love God, but we're going to be in there just kind of reflecting and celebrating. And I'm going to let y'all know this is going to be special because it's the first time we're doing something to commemorate my life in ministry without my queen. So I'm going to need all the support I can, man. Y'all come in there to catch these tears, hug on a brother, love on a brother, but just come with a mind and the spirit of celebration. It's just about having a good time. I wouldn't have believed in my life that God could bring me as far as he had. And we just going to take a moment to pause for the cause and say, look what the Lord has done. Looking forward to seeing all of y'all in the house. Bishop, Dr., Reverend, all of that stuff. Dr. Kevin Daniels is going to come and bring a word from on high. So please make sure that you're there with us to celebrate. All right. Now I done flew my kite. We got the church announcements out the way. We're going to have to get some organ music or something to play while I'm doing the church announcements. I think it's time to take it to the next level. Now, I'll say something like that jokingly, and Shaka will be on here next week with some organ music playing in the background while I'm doing the church announcements. I couldn't get through them tonight fast enough because I'm excited about the dialogue. I told my big brother, when you listen, the essence of really having big brothers, right? It's not even really an age dynamic in some spaces because I think he's older than me, but this is really about seasoning, maturity, and accomplishments. He's one of the men that I look up to, great man of God, has done things in this city beyond measure without a lot of the accolades because he's a true servant. And he literally did the most of his serving in one of the communities that's one of the most underserved in Baltimore, the capital of redlining itself, Sandtown, Winchester. And this brother and what he brings to the citizens of Baltimore is something that is just straight from God and from his heart. I'm talking about one and only the president of the board of the We Are Us movement and the pastor of Grace City Church, my big bro, Pastor Corey Barnes. What's up, man?
What's up, brother? You know how to bring them out, man. I feel greater than I feel great now. I feel great now.
Listen, you didn't accepted this invitation, and I told you tonight is going to be about having the conversation, man, to really sit down, because I think sometimes when we come on here, people think that it's all about we are us, it's all about edifying, and we need to have some platforms and some spaces where we do that, but we want to be able to have the conversation tonight. First of all, I want to thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me, brother.
Man, listen, you in high demand now. I had to ask permission this time. You gotta go get permission and say, bro, can you come? Like, is just, can you allow to be with me this time? And he said, absolutely. Pastor Coy, tell the people a little bit about who you are. Give them a little bit more about how you got from to.
Yeah. So I've been working. I graduated from Coppin State University. And when I graduated, I filled out an application. I was leaving Charles Hickey School after working there for 3 years, and I was finishing my school, and I filled out an application. This place called New Song had a teacher's position open. I didn't know what a lesson plan was. I had no idea how to write a lesson plan, but I came in there and it was a girl who they took out of Harlem Park who stretched out in the floor, and they brought her up to New Song. And all I know is when she started acting out, I corrected her and she was quiet. And they said, I don't care if he can't teach anything, just bring him up here and we'll teach him how to teach, because you can get her quiet. So that's how I got my first teaching job. Didn't know what a lesson plan was. I had a criminal justice degree, working at Charles Hickey School, and I ended up teaching. And I spent 11 years down in Sandtown, loving on that community. More importantly, the community loved me. And there's no place, you talking about the place where you go borrow sugar from your neighbor. Yeah.
That's a real neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a neighborhood. That's a neighborhood, man. Everybody cousins. You know what I mean? So I got my roots down there, and I honor Susan Allen Tibbles and all of the team down there who taught and poured servanthood in me. And I went on and did some other things, restaurant, and Rest the Soul of the Young Man. One of the biggest projects I've ever done was the North Bay Project. That a young man just passed away over there, and I send condolences to his family. But we moved that project from deforestation all the way to $40 million project. So that was one of the best projects I've ever been a part of. 10,000 Baltimore City kids. Marvin, I had Garrison, Calverton, Harlem Park, all on the same opening night.
Wow.
For an overnight trip, and had no problems. Yeah, so man, that was our first. Bob had no idea what he was accepting there. They said they had never. I said, you got Harlem Park, Garrison, all coming at the same week. Man, we were able to pull that off, man, and so it's been amazing. And so we did. North Bay's been around for almost since 2004 now. So it's been around a while. So I've been a part of that, man. That was one of the great projects. And then we started Great City Church after that. And then We Are Us, man. So listen, the community has been good to me and have allowed me to do what I love to do. So I'm just grateful for God's people and the people that have embraced me. Yeah.
I always say the Chop Shop is a place where the kingdom and community collide. The kingdom is the community is the kingdom. But there's some people that's a little bit more deliberate. Please talk to the people about the kingdom.
Yeah,
because you come from one of the churches that have a really rich heritage here in Baltimore. It has a rich heritage of serving. It sat down in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And I know our free lunch program, our summer programs, our basketball teams, and all were there back in that version of the church when it was in my community. So tell the people a little bit about your spiritual lineage. We're going to get all this out the way before we start.
Yeah. So I was down, it was funny because I was at First Mount Olive Free Will Baptist Church, and they knew how to do inside the walls perfectly. I mean, that was a church that knew how to do. So everything I learned about in the walls, I learned from my pastor, Bishop Oscar Brown. But then there was this Presbyterian ministry that had come into Sandtown and had moved in, was doing work outside of the walls. They building houses, making schools, job placement. And I always said, how do I take the inside walls and the outside of walls and bring them together? And I felt like that's what kingdom should look like. So when I eventually pastored in 2009, I wanted to have great outside of the walls ministry and a church that did inside of the walls as well. And so that's really been my heart. There's no tension there. I think outside of the walls and inside of the walls are just as important. If you won't see me, if you see me in church walls, you're gonna see me outside of church walls. That's just what I believe. I just see the scriptures that way. I see it as Jesus' mission, what they call Missio Dei, which is God's mission, is to take God into the people so that people can then expand the kingdom. I really see that the Genesis 1 account is about expanding God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, what Jesus taught. And so that's what he indwells in us so that we may go out and transform our communities. So I actually literally believe that. This is what I believe. And so that's what we do and so when We Are Us began to see men just doing this, no matter what their background was, it just excited me. I had to be a part of this work. Yeah.
Man, it's awesome, and you gave me the perfect segue because that's what I want to jump into. We view this work, and we've done community work, me in workforce development, you in schools, and we've done work that's kept us connected to the community. But I can say honestly that my work in the We Are Us movement has been a different type of connection, sometimes in a good way and sometimes in a not so good way. Can you talk to us a little bit about your viewpoint and perspective from the boots on the ground every day, encountering people, some in the worst possible condition? What has that done versus what, community looked like when you were doing work in New Song and things of that nature?
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you what's most important is we need to understand, no matter what perspective and what periphery we stand, we only have part of the story. That's in faith, and that's also in the lives of others. We only have part of the story. So in order for you to fully get the story, when I go across our church door of ministry in Nicaragua, and Marvin, listen, I haven't seen pictures of Nicaragua. I tell you all kinds of stuff, but you don't understand Nicaragua until you smell it. When we saw children in the trash dumps and sewage in their feet and tasting that and seeing that and watching that night when we would leave there and knowing that it's 100% pitch black and children are staying in trash dumps, that I understood there's a perspective I can't read about. Well, the same thing in our communities. What keeps us in the community, that when I know that, people want to just lock everybody up and throw away the key and criminalize everybody. But when I look in the face of the individuals that's on the corner, Marvin, I see suffering. I see Black men in pain. And you can't see that from the couch. You can't see that reading the newspaper. You can't see that off of a report. When we go out in that community, we're seeing suffering. And you just can't have a criminalized mind and not see the suffering. And if you do, you're not close enough. You got to get closer to understand it. Yeah.
Getting closer, you talking about an intimacy that we now have when you look at this. And I'm going to ask you one of those questions that you agreed to come. I'm going to ask you one of those questions. When you look at from the perspective that we have in our city, and we're 2 years into a new electorate. I'm not going to talk about any individual administration, not the mayor, not the city council president, not any particular district, but 2 years in a new electorate. Do you see progress that's associated with the elected officials?
So there's a complex problem that we're dealing with when we talk about progress. So if I would give credit for progress, the progress that I see is that we have realized that we've moved from this idea that every person that commits crime is a criminal, and we began to understand that there's a deeper rooted issue of suffering and trauma that's going on. I would call that progress. as in our perspective and philosophy and psychology and what we're dealing with the individual that's doing the wrong. Okay. That's where I feel progress. Where I feel like we got a lot of work to do is that now we're engaging, but you still need enforcement. And because there's the enforcement has stepped back and we're now doing more engagement, and we see the purpose of engagement, the lack of enforcement then allows things that we have never seen before, where we're shaking the hands of individuals with a gun on them. Marvin, you and I know back in the day that the gun would be 6 feet away. And the reason why it's 6 feet away is because the police can't put the gun on you. So that's 6 feet away. If an issue happened, a dice game, they at least got to go get the gun. And then at least you would run because you know they're getting the gun. But we're shaking hands of individuals with guns on them. And that's where we got a lot of work to do. And there are more guns on the street, from my understanding right now. And I'll just, I'm not I do have a criminal justice degree, but I'm not a criminologist. I will quote Tyrone Powers, where he simply says, we got to get the guns off the street. And so that's where we're hurting and lacking right now. Yeah.
So when you talk about the philosophical versus the actual, I guess you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it's versus the tangible. What does tangible progress look like in this climate? I know you mentioned getting the guns off the street. What is reasonable, measurable expectations for a person like yourself who is out here, who's engaged, involved? I'm not interested in talking to the person that's not doing their part. What does tangible, and even if you don't look at it from a political perspective, but you look at it, if all of the systems are working, the faith house, the education house, the political house, if the businesses, if all of the 5 pillars are coming together in the community, and what tangible measure of progress should we be looking for specifically as it pertains to gun violence and the killing? And when should we be expecting it?
Right. So I think when it comes together is exactly, it's perfect, because I think, first of all, when you engage an individual, we should be able to move. We have enough systems and resources to move each individual through and get them what they need immediately. And it's not until we're able to do that immediately through all the resources that we're going to see real change in our city. If we have Marvin, we engage a person with addiction, and then we get them somewhere. Or how about this? We engage a person whose family been shot, and then we go into the home, and then you understand the environment that they're living in. We got to have resources to change those environments immediate. It is not until we collaborate those resources that we're going to see some real change in our community. As long as people are living in the condition that they're living in, without connecting all of these pieces together and everybody kind of doing their separate thing, that's going to hinder progress. That's absolutely going to hinder the progress.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You being a leader, you're a leader. I respect you, looked up to you. If you had the opportunity to bring the 5 pillars into the room, what conversation are you having with them?
Yeah. So if I had the heavy hitters in the room, the first thing I would say to them is, one, it's like a person in debt. First thing you got to do is take the shovel. You got to take the shovel out the hand and get them to stop digging. So whatever's going on, we got to get the shovel out of the hand of the individual. If it's the shooter, we got to get the gun out of his hand. If it's addiction, we got to get the drugs out of his hand. So whatever we need to do to stop the digging. Okay. So once we grab hold, once we stop the digging, all right, this is the problem. You take the shovel out the hand and it's stuck in a hole, asking, how do I get out of the? So then we work on getting them out of the hole. Okay. But then guess what? They've been doing this for 3, 4, 5 years. How do we change the practice of how they're digging in the hole? Because this is a practice they've been in. The problem we have is too often we're trying to change behavior instead of shifting the system. And we got to begin to have a system shift versus a behavioral shift. And this is why, and I'll say this is why the mayor's having a hard time, because system change is difficult. System change takes time. And I'm going to give you an example. When I was a teacher, I could not understand. I had 13 14-year-olds in my classroom. I stepped out of a classroom and a fight broke out. When the fight broke out, Pastor Marvin, I came back in the classroom. I said, I tell you what, who was fighting? I sent the 2 people that was fighting home, and I left the other kids in the room, and I said, y'all stand after school. And what happened was that y'all said, they said, we didn't do anything. I said, yes, you did. I said, how in the world 2 people are fighting, you okay with it, and you sitting up watching it, you all in trouble. Y'all go home. But man, them parents came up, them parents were fussing and all that. But guess what? In 2 days, when something broke out, guess what will happen? Hey man, you better chill. You're not getting me in trouble. You better stop. You're not doing, because it has to be a system change. I went after the system. Why in the world I got 13 years? Children can stay in the house by themselves at 9 years old. I can't leave the classroom for 5 minutes, and I don't have a safe classroom. And then we perpetuate this. You're gonna punish me for leaving them in the classroom. No, I have a problem with having 13 black men that can't sit in a room together and not harm each other. I went after the system, and guess what? I could leave out the classroom. I could go upstairs. They won't do anything.
Why don't so you just said something profound. Why do you believe that there's not a problem with what we're seeing in our city right now as it pertains to violence? And I'm talking about a problem at any level. I see, and y'all know me, I'm gonna keep it a stack. I see the mayor do a specific letter when the shooting happened down in the harbor, but I ain't see no letter when Jerome got shot up in Park Heights last week. You know, what message are we sending when that's the response?
Listen, Pastor Marvin, this is going to be very unpopular. But it has to be a system shift, like a model. When communities are experiencing gun violence, everybody's got to feel the impact of that. I tell you this, if someone got shot in front of the mosque, you think you're going to still be standing out in front of the mosque up in Garrison? No, the whole environment is going to change. That's where we have to get. Places where people are dying, we have to shift the entire environment. And 2, it makes it uncomfortable for everyone. That's not popular. But I promise you, if everybody began to get uncomfortable, you're going to see a real shift in our communities. You're going to see a real shift everywhere. This is what happened. Let me give you, and you nailed it. What happened when someone died down Fells Point? They shut it down for 6 months. You couldn't even drive in Fells Point. Remember, they were blocked. The whole area was blocked. They made it uncomfortable for everybody. And that's what has to happen when anybody dies in a neighborhood, because it's not okay.
So let me ask you this, because I want to talk about the intersectionality. You brought up systems, right?
Yes.
The highway to nowhere literally divided my neighborhood from yours. Yours being Sandtown, Winchester, mine's being the Poe Homes. That was all one community at one time, right? When you have redlining, when you have disenfranchisement for people, when you have poverty to the level that great institutions like the former St. Paul Baptist Church that sits down in my neighborhood can sit there in a dilapidated and decrepit space, when the response from the governor and other entities is to wipe out entire blocks and just leave empty fields, when the conditions of the community look like they look, right? How much of that plays a part, or the lack of investment in these communities, in that mind frame that's cultivating what we're seeing in our communities today?
Listen, Pastor Marvin, and I can nail it right in Sandtown. The number one goal when we were doing the work down in Sandtown was to make those people in Gilmore Homes that was in the projects homeowners, making affordable house for people to own homes. And then as they began to walk into this new, fresh Habitat for Humanity house, you began to shift the mindset. People have been taking care of their community. 321 people down in Sandtown are homeowners and that are in Habitat houses because they own the homes. So it's a shift now with generational shift. Now some of the people have died off, but we have 321 people owning their home. That's the greatest asset you have in America is your home ownership. So you're right. You environment, home ownership, how we set the environment up, all determines on how people see themselves and other people. Yes.
You on Live with the Chop Shop. We come to you every Thursday at 6 p.m. And tonight we're talking to my friend, dynamic man of God, man about community, man about business, educator, soon to be Dr. Corey Barnes. And we having a real conversation where I get to ask him stuff that ain't politically correct. Some of it ain't fun. And he said he's going to show up and he's going to give us the responses. So if you hear, I need you to like, love, and share this broadcast. Make Facebook's algorithm go absolutely crazy, but do what you got to do. Even type people's names in the comments to get more people on this show, because tonight we're going to have the conversation. Pastor Corey, we know that it's been really elevated what the problems are in our community. But as I just mentioned, you wear a multiplicity of hats. You wear the hat of faith leader. You wear the hat of educator. You've worn the hat of, and still in your own right, wear a hat of businessman, right? These are three of those pillars in the community. From the perspective of you as a faith leader, what needs to be happening with our faith leaders as it pertains to this culture shift, this system change that we need in our city?
Let me first address something, Pastor Marvin, because I think it's important for us to get it correct. Because you and I are involved in this work. I heard on the radio someone from the conservative talk show talk about what needs to be done in Baltimore, which is interesting. And then the man said, "So where is the church? What is the church doing?" And let me that agitates me, and let me tell you why that agitates me, Pastor Marvin, because we are out there. You and I are out there. There are a plethora of pastors out there, which means the church is out there. We are the church. So we are leading this movement, which is a part of the church. We are the church. So let's not say the church is not there. We are the church. So whenever you see me, whenever you see Pastor Marvin, when you see Bishop Daniels, whatever you see those bishops, the church is in the community. So to say that the church is not in the community, please, let's not do that ever again, as long as you see Pastor Marvin's face out there, as long as you see my face out there. But let's phrase the question this way. What is it anything more the church can do to help stop this violence in our community? And I will answer absolutely. Absolutely. We definitely need more churches to get boots on the ground. And I know a lot of churches average age 60s, but as many men that we have in our churches that can come out in your community and begin and engage, because the key to this is really qualitative connected relationships. The key to what we do is relationship. How do we stop the beef? Through relationships. How do we connect with people who usually don't connect? Through relationships. So if your church has a relationship in the community, that's half the battle, because it's through those relationships that person may go to your church whose mother is there, that we can then address the mother with the issue that then stop her son from being killed. Quality connected relationship. If you bring that, that's half the battle for us. Yep.
The business owner in Baltimore that is in most cases a different nationality than the community that they're serving, and in a time of record inflation, what impact is that having right now on our community and its resources, and what shift do we need to see when it comes down to that population of people?
Yeah, you're nailing it, Pastor Marvin, with your questions, because like you said, like you're doing a phenomenal job getting people $17, $20 an hour. But now inflation has gone up. And I was just at my mom's nursing home, and the CNAs would talk about how am I going to pay for gas and food? How do I pay my rent? And so we're at record-breaking numbers in gas prices and things like that. And we have to be a supportive environment for our communities. Certain things that we can, if the church is able to help, we need to do it as the church, as the community is able to help. That's why our food distribution is so critical, because when we do food distribution, we understand there are times when people are running out of food. So that becomes so critical. What were you going to say, Pastor Marvin?
I want to maybe rephrase my question, because I'm the faith leader, I'm the community guy, I'm all of those things, right? And one of the biggest problems down in my community, because I take ownership over the po homes, is that we got a store in the community that the inflation is literally causing, and I'm gonna be keeping a stack with you. The inflation is causing some of the younger people down there to want to run up in there and purge the store, because the 50-cent bag of chips is now $1.59. Right? Now, my goal is to keep the peace, to make sure that this, what role do, and now I know what we chose to do. What role do we, because as faith leaders, as community leaders, we look at some of the things, but we hardly ever go at the businesses. We don't really go to the businesses. Food deserts is bad enough that we reckless with the orange card and we willing to pay whatever because we treat it like it's free money. What do we need to do to keep the balance as it pertains to businesses that are operating in our community that normally don't put money back into our community, but now want to participate in this price gouging that's happened during this inflation?
It's so funny, man, because you're working on both sides of my brain, which is the pastor side.
That was my goal.
Business side.
I said that.
You're a trip. You're a trip.
I said you both of them.
Yeah,
I said that. Because I believe if anybody can talk about a meeting of the two, it would be you. But if I pastor in a community I don't live in, if I'm not using that store, if I'm not patronizing it, if I'm only there on Sundays and Wednesdays, then I'm not feeling the pain of the people that's got to pay $1.50 for a 50-cent bag of chips. So I'm less likely, but you got to help me with this, Pastor.
Listen, listen, you're going to get a bipolar answer right now, because I'm going to tell you, you're going to get a bipolar answer right now. I'm telling you, because I just had a conversation with a business person, and they said to me, Pastor Corey, I don't know how to do this. The price of everything have tripled. He said, it is tripled. And I said to him, here it is, Pastor Marvin, you got to pass that on. You can't serve discounted chicken wings at that price if you're paying that. I said, you can't do it. I said, you can't do it. That's the business side of me. Now, let me go on the other side of the pole. Now,
because you're about to get your store ran up. I need to know, because you about to get your store ran up in, because you didn't brought that change on the people in the community a little too aggressive and too fast, right? And now they sitting back. You ain't no longer a part of the solution. Right. You become a part of the problem. So
let me go. Let me go back to let me go on the other side of the pole. Now, the other side of the pole is that what they did during the pandemic, there were people that began to invest in those businesses that allowed them to keep their profit margin, even help businesses that wasn't doing well, right? So there's a way to do it, but you got to inject that number so that they can pay for that food at that price and keep it at that price. So that's where your governmental agencies got to kick in. That's where your business, not just your government, the state, all that extra reserve they got at the state is where you can keep the prices down. You know what I mean? Say, okay, I will. You keep this here. We will give you this, but keep it at the people so they can afford it. That's where everybody's got to work together, Pastor Marvin. But either way, you at risk. One, that business is going out of business because, first of all, it's only a 20% profit. That's if you don't steal or waste any food in a restaurant business. If you don't steal, if nobody's stealing, you don't have no food waste, you can maybe gain 20%. Profit margin is not even that big. So by the time that business hits down in the hood, if his numbers are not right, he's going to close. So now we don't have a store. We got the situation where we had to bring food down the community because they didn't have stores in there because the profit. So that's where governmental agencies got to step in and help out there.
But governmental agencies is only one part of the system, right?
Right.
I'm the faith leader in the community. I'm the trusted person in the community.
Right.
And I want to make sure that I'm doing my part. Like I said, I know what we chose to do in the community where I serve, because everything for us, like you say, is about relationship and engagement. We're going to come up in your store. We're going to have a very real conversation with you and try to find out. Now, I do understand that you're getting this food at a certain cost. And in order for you to make money, you got to do X, Y, Z. But some of this, and I'm going to say it right here in the public, some of this inflation is trendy. Your food costs haven't changed. We know that this inflation isn't about a change in cost. It's about the government flooding the system with money, right? And so if you're going to give away free money through unemployment and you're going to give people not only an independence card for them, but for every one of their children, right? But what has happened traditionally with this inflation is when that money flow stops, people then are handicapped because they participated when they had the money. So now I'm losing more as a member of the community because I got to continue to pay those prices while my child don't get a PEBT card no more. You know, I'm not getting as much TCA as I was getting when they was flooding. Unemployment has cut me off, but the prices haven't changed. What, as a pillar of the community, the educator, the pastor, what conversations do we need to be bringing together and having? And I'm asking you this because you wear all those hats.
Yeah. And you're right. That's where you have to have, and you're right. I like what you just said, because you have to bring it all together. Those are honest conversations. I know how much a case of chicken costs, Marvin. I do. You know what I mean? I know. I can tell you that it's tripled. That's not made up. At Restaurant Depot, I can tell you what I paid before, and I can tell you what it is now. It's tripled. I don't know how you sell a chicken wing for less than $2 right now. Who wants to eat a $2 chicken wing? But that's where it is right now. And if you can't sell it for $2, you really get ready to go out of business. So how do we do this? That's a great question. I love but having a real conversation like this where we can look in each other's eyes and understand to be true that I am paying. Listen, Marvin, Granny's is paying $2 for that chicken wing right now. You know what I mean? It's expensive. It's real. I know. So I'm not gouging the community. I can't sell it for that price. So I'm about to get out of business. Macaroni and cheese is way too high right now. You're going to get macaroni with no cheese right now. It's real.
Butter, salt, pepper.
Yes, it's real out here, bro.
You on live with the Chop Shop. We are talking to my friend and my brother, the president of the We Are Us Movements board, as well as pastor of Grace City Church, Pastor Corey Barnes. Pastor, I want to take a shift because we're talking about the city of Baltimore, and we're having a little bit more of a pushy conversation than we normally would here. From the community perspective, what solutions are you seeing at work because one of the things, of course, you know, there's several of us that's even in a part of the movement that while we work on the greater good in Baltimore, we've made an investment in our own neighborhoods that's producing results. What are some of the strategies that you know of that are working at the community level, that some of the things that can be done by people who are in those neighborhoods?
So one of the things we get the privilege and sad privilege to do is look in the face of victims who have been harmed by gun violence, right? And one of the dynamics that I find very interesting is when a mother or female is going through that moment, the type of support she gets from other females to deal with her suffering. One of the things that I notice on the corner and across the board is that there is not an environment for our men to put voice to their suffering. And that's where we're having the greatest problem. There's a lot of pain in the community, and our boys don't have a voice. They don't have a way to voice their suffering. And that's one of the number one dynamics that I think we have to address as a community and set an environment up so that we can be honest with what's going on.
Give me some example of that. Give me some examples of what, because the first thing that I'm going to think about is the church. And I'm not talking about the four walls, right? Because I tell people everywhere I go, I pastor people that may never come into my church. I bury their dead. I pray in their living rooms. I show up at the funeral home and preach the eulogy. I make sure that I'm available to the people as it pertains to the people in the community that may never cross the borders of my church. But when you talk about men specifically having space, place, or opportunity to voice their pain, what does that really look like for those who may want to create that space or
Yeah.
who want to deploy that as a strategy?
Yeah. And it is really important that as men we began to shift this model. The number one mistake we've made, and it's generational, but we've also learned a lot. The number one thing is how we deal with pain. The first thing we do when we were taught, I know I was, you fall, you say, get up, man, you all right, you get up, you fine. It's to push past the pain. We are taught that. So most of our men and boys are taught to push past the pain. This is what we've learned over the past 15 years about pain. That pain is not the problem. Pain is the indicator that something is wrong. So when you feel a pain, now you don't push past it, you stop. And guess what? If you stop early enough and you go to the doctor say, I don't see nothing wrong because you caught it early enough. We've got to teach our boys to begin to vocalize the pain, because what we're seeing is the explosion of the pain when people pull the gun and begin to shoot. If we can begin to talk about what's under the hood right now, when I look in your eyes, Pastor Marvin, right now, and you say, I'm not doing well today. I am, and even this, and another thing we have to shift in our society is that every time something goes wrong, we want to blame somebody for it. And the first thing we have to do is identify how I feel. So if you do something to me, Marvin, the first thing I need to say is not judge you, but say, Pastor Marvin, that hurt me when you said that. That hurt me when you said. We don't know how to, boys don't know how to do that. Boy, we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to identify. It's something wrong with you, Marvin. You know. When you just said that, Marvin, that hurt, bro.
Where do we need to be? Because you're talking philosophical change, you're talking culture change. Where do we need to be in order to see this happen?
First of all, our churches have to grow and identify the difference between understanding this therapeutic work as we approach ministry, understanding that either we lift our skill in this work or outsource it to other people, and stay in our lane. But we got to understand that is a deeper issue, and we just can't throw the Holy Spirit on it. Our people are suffering, and people need to be healed. They need to be transformed. And not that the Holy Spirit doesn't do it, but this Messio Theo, this God that's inside of us, needs to be a model or a mirror to how we do that. And if we can't do it ourselves, if we can't put voice to our own suffering, then what? Jesus himself was on the cross and said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? That was a model to how you deal with suffering. Job, we penalized Job. No, Job gave an example of how you deal with suffering. He put voice to the suffering. See, we keep treating the Psalms as this is just for celebration. No, Psalms is a model for how you put voice to suffering. And so that's where we theologically got to shift some on that and help and understand that the Psalms are used to model for us how we can put our voice to suffering. Yeah.
You're on Live with the Chop Shop. We're talking to Pastor Corey Barnes. Bro, you ripping it apart now, man. You ripping it apart. I got a question that I want to ask you because, and again, this is my platform. I'm gonna keep it a stack.
Yes, sir.
I was enamored by one of our newest platoons, where and y'all look, I'm just say how it is. The white pastor showed up with an abundance of black men walking with him and following him. And I can't say that I understand the dynamics of the relationship, but it kind of touched me a certain way. We see the Nation of Islam having a abundance, having a real ability to reach and transform black men. why don't we see this same work happen commonly in the black church?
Yeah, man. I think, listen, the transforming nature in the black church is powerful. Like, let's not lose sight of that. Like, every major movement has happened through the black church, the prophetic voice of the black pastor. Like, there's by far, we know that that's real. What we have to return back to and what we have to really get into is understanding that our culture has shifted majorly. And we have to be ready for this new paradigm of individuals that's coming to us, and be ready and postured to serve them. Again, Jesus served the outsider. You know, he made the outsider an insider. That's the basis of a. Too often the dynamics is it's us or them. They're the outsiders. Then the question becomes is then you're missing your job, because the job of the pastor, the job of the church leader is to bring the outsider and make them. That's what the whole Lord have mercy. The story of the Samaritan, it means that the man was an outsider that were brought inside. And so we treat our own children, our own culture, the hip hop culture, as outsiders that can't be redeemed. And we can't treat the hip hop culture like a culture that can't be redeemed. Lord have mercy. We cannot. Yeah.
So the separation, you believe, is because of our perspective towards those who are in our own communities.
I'm gonna even break it down even more, Pastor Marvin. You making me work, but here it is. We have a theological concept of holiness that it's this idea of the pure and the impure. And the problem with that, and this is the problem with that, is that we separate the pure and the impure. But that really wasn't the model that Jesus was going. That was an Old Testament kind of model. Jesus turned that upside down. He took the impure. Listen, our theology is he who knew no sin took on sin so that we might be the righteousness of God, which means he turned that model upside down. He took on the wrong, made himself impure so that you can be pure. So we still have a holiness mindset that the impure on this side and the pure on this side, and you keep them separated in order to get righteousness. That's not our theology. Our theology is the pure God took on the unrighteous, and then from there we became righteous. So we're messing this thing all up as well, how we view the hip hop culture and everything. So that's where I think our problem is, bro. Yeah.
Pastor Corey Barnes, man, you have showed up and showed out tonight, man. I just want to thank you. We may be moving to a space where we got to have you on as a reoccurring guest, as long as we can have this conversation.
You pushing me, man.
Listen,
you're gonna get me in trouble with my wife.
No, we gotta have, because people, I think one of the things that people aren't exposed to, they know we walk the streets, but they're not really exposed to that. We are taking the risk as this generation's leaders of pushing back and challenging in areas of tradition while we respect what got us here, right? But we understand that theologically, physiologically, psychologically, and sociologically, and philosophically, we cannot continue to be where we were if we're going to be effective in this generation. And people, it's one thing to see us out in the street thinking that we the rebirth of we shall overcome. No, that's not the case. That's not the case. Because we're looking, what we see when we're in the streets is 1,000% different than what our predecessors saw. Absolutely. I don't see hopelessness in the streets. I see possibility. And I see possibility because I look in the mirror at what's possible every day. Yes, so that's why it's important to get you on here to make you say those things that really challenges and go against the grain, because I think people need to understand philosophically where men like us who are in the streets at night in Baltimore doing the work, where our heads are, as opposed to just our physical locale because we went live on Facebook.
Yeah. And Sister Nicole nailed it, bro. She said Matthew 20. She talked about the sheep and the goat, man. You know, that she Matthew 25, she just nailed that, man. And she's right. You know, Jesus said, gave an example, who's on my right and my left, you know, and he says, you know, who he says, when I was hungry, they gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, they gave me something to drink. When I was naked, they clothed me. He said, when I was in prison, they came to see me. And then he raised the question, beautiful question.
When we do all that.
Yeah. And then he said, when did we do all that? He said, whenever you've done this to the least of these, you've done this to me. Man, that's what We Are Us is really about, man. You know, that's why I love this organization, bro. This is why I love doing this, man. I really believe it, man. Yeah,
I believe in it too, man. And I thank you for being with us tonight, man. There's, you know, to our listening audience, there's a culture shift. It's a change in the mindset that's fueling and driving the great work that you're seeing happening. It's not what it used to be. I tell people all the time, I feel like in this third year, I'm finally pastoring my church because I was so leery of even pursuing some of the things that I know God had given me in vision because I felt like I needed to pastor the church.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I need to pastor the church that God set to my hands. And it's very different than my forerunners, with all respect to them. It's very, very different. Pastor Corey, thank you for being with us tonight. Shaka gonna start sending me messages if I don't start this wrap up. Man, we're gonna continually have you back on this show because these quality conversations that people are showing up for are very important. On next week, our pre-Father's Day show, we have got one of the greatest apostolic fathers in the kingdom of God, nationally known, but one who takes my phone call every time I call. And I asked him if he would just come on and we can have this conversation about kingdom fathers. When we're talking dual-fold, y'all, we're talking the apostolic father. What are the true apostolic fathers? Because we got guys out here now that are 26 years old talking about their bishops and apostles and what it really means to have apostolic fathers that we are yielded to. It makes no difference to say that somebody is your pastor or your spiritual father, but you don't listen to what they say. And to natural fatherhood, we understand that he is the father of three of the greatest young men and an amazing daughter this side of the kingdom. So we're going to be talking to Pastor, Bishop, Doctor, retired, came back, resurrected again, Bishop James D. Nelson Sr., y'all. So make sure you tune in for next week's show. I got to thank my right hand and my left hand, Mr. Shaka Pitts, on the ones and twos behind the scene, making the magic happen. Shaka, you almost made me throw up when you came on the screen just to clap. This guy is an undercover comedian in his own right.
My man was talking. My man was talking. My man was talking tonight, man.
Hey, Pastor, I'm just getting used to his comments when he put him up there. But tonight, my man pulled himself from backstage saying, and he gave it the slow clap too. I love Shaka Pitts, and I love you. You, our listening audience, already say if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. Absolutely, it does. It just was nobody there to hear it. But you show up and you show out. You're here to listen to what it is we're talking about. We don't have the raciest, the sexiest, or the controversial topics, but we talk about where kingdom and community come together because we believe in a better Baltimore. So as I always say in closing, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Be the change you want to see. Love your community. I love the Pohomes. I ain't trying to save Baltimore. I'm trying to build something in my neighborhood that can be replicated over and over again in every neighborhood because I understand my sphere of influence, and the place where I love, it loves me back. And above and beyond everything, always remember that we can be more. Thank you for joining the Chop Shop. See you next week.
I can be more. There's nothing that I can't achieve if I just believe.